Good evening, everyone, and good evening to everyone online as well. I'm Paul Jackson. I convene the Heritage Talks here at the BRLSI. These are normally about tangible heritage, the unique buildings in Bath, how they came to be built, and the stories behind them. Tonight we're talking about an intangible form of heritage, and its legacy. Our cultural heritage arising from events over 60 years ago. And before we get going, I need to mention a couple of other talks coming up in the same vein. The first one is on Monday the 20th, which is 2 weeks today, and that'll be Dr. Tim Moore, who's the National Trust curator at the Assembly Rooms, talking about the Afro-Caribbean communities in Bath in the 18th century, and including the singers and musicians who played at the Assembly Rooms. And the previous Friday, on the 17th of October, we have a talk about Michael Jackson, not about the controversy that has overshadowed his reputation really since his death, but more about how he developed his dance and music from black roots through Hollywood to what made him an icon for a whole generation. Now, we're really privileged to have Roger here tonight. Roger's worked his way up from adversity through Bristol Council, through training people about diversity and community work. He's since become a broadcaster, public speaker, and if you want to catch up with the TEDx talk that he gave in Bristol about a year ago, it's on his website. He's a lecturer at UWE, writer, artistic director, film curator, and probably much more besides. I think it's fair to say that Roger has effectively devoted his life to building bridges, both within communities and between them, for which I know, Roger, you're greatly proud of having been awarded an MBE 5 years ago. So can we give a warm welcome, please, to Roger Griffith MBE.
Thank you very much for that very warm opening. I think you've taken some of my... Yeah. Yeah, we've got a few gremlins today. Firstly, thank you for coming out today. I know there's lots of different things to do. I think I'm clashing with EastEnders, so I'm glad that you're with me tonight, and it's very humbling, having come from humble beginnings, both my family's and my ancestors' origins, to my own personal story and odyssey, which I'm going to share with you today to be here. So thanks to Paul, Ian, and the team who've made me very welcome in Bath over the few years that I've been coming here. So I'm delighted to be here. Hello to everybody online. Thank you as well for joining as well. And I'm here to give this talk during Black History Month on how the Bristol Bus Boycott changed Britain. But not only that, how it has impacted on me and many others as well. So I'm going to give it, as I always do, a personal touch. So we will get to covering the case for equality, diversity, equity and inclusion, the legacy that left behind in Bristol and Britain. That's why I was just touching upon the personal inspiration it's given me and others of the Bristol Bus Boycott. And of course, we're going to cover the story of the Bristol Bus Boycott. Some of which would be familiar, some may be new, but the story is so heartwarming. It's something that, in such troubled and darkened times, certainly was missing from the pages of my school books, but also is such a great story of unity and about how we can bring people together as we are today, and I really want that to be one of my central themes today. So, as my warm act gave me my hype man, I suppose, that he's never been called, Paul said, but I just want to just cover that, just because this is where the story has really helped to change my life. Author of My American Odyssey as well, but it's the partnerships and the social activism that really is what excites me as well. So I'm going to just put that me on one side, but it was also it's just my way of telling the story. I didn't know that that's such a thing until I'm very proud that from leaving school without any qualifications, I'm now a lecturer and honoured as a doctorate. So my style, for those that are aware, is like as an autodidact. I put myself into the story and autoethnography as well. Starts with my parents, and the Windrush generation, Empire Windrush, 22nd of June, 1948. Those were the signs that they faced, and you can see discrimination even before us. We got here, and there were, as was just alluded to from that talk that talks about 18th century. There have been black people in Britain for a very long time, going back to the Hadrian's Wall, from work that's done from David Olusoga and more that they've found there. But some of our troubled times that were occurring, you can see even the signs that my parents and others faced. The Windrush generation is just that colloquial term as well. And this is just one slice of one story from a very much from an Afro-Caribbean perspective. But we were invited guests as well. That's the Nationality Act that brought us here, not just us from the Caribbean, but also from the Commonwealth, from India, what was been partitioned a year earlier in 1947, and out of that came Bangladesh and Pakistan and others that came to help to rebuild Britain and make their homes that help to change Britain. So when we're in such turbulent times that I'll just make loose reference to, again, we've got to look at the history of how we were here. And, I'm here because you were there, basically, as well. Let's get to the story of the Bristol Bus Boycott. I was very proud to, if you're in Bristol getting a bus, you'll see the plaque that's there. I was very proud to be part of a consortium of people who helped get that bus there, and I was the MC for when that was there. And those were our three leaders who were Paul Stevenson, Guy Bailey, and Roy Hackett, all been honoured with doctorates, more of which later. As well, and I'll tell the story of how that came to be later. I just want to look at them as well. It's Barbara Dettering, one of our queens from, I was with her at just this lunchtime. She's at a Caribbean Elders Club at the Malcolm X Centre as well. So we had a female influence that was if not directly part of it, but certainly part of the backbone. So people like Joyce Morris. Wisdom and Paul's wife as well, another Joyce. Don't forget something that we now know as allies in Tony Benn, the serving MP of the area. He's vital in this story. Not only did he give inspiration, both intellectually and moral support. Behind him, where he stands, he took part of that legislation, not only just turned it into an action from when there was a colour bar from people who were banned effectively from using the buses. There was a colour bar that was put in place from that. I'll come explain that through a video shortly, but I just want to just pay tribute to some of the key players. The international support that came. So Leary Constantine, for those who were cricketers or like their sport. became a barrister in Britain as well, gave, again, that intellectual and moral support as well through that. I just want to go back to, as I said, what Tony Benn, they became very close friends, and he made a pact with Paul. They lobbied, so it didn't just stop at the boycott and jobs that were created from them. It then went on to what we now know as the Race Relations Act, which why I'm truly here. It's the 60th year and anniversary, and also my 60th birthday as well. So I feel pretty inspired by those forces. Inspiration too came from the United States of America, came from Black America specifically. A very young Dr. Martin Luther King, who wasn't a household name at that point. It was his first gig in Montgomery in Alabama. The headlines there went to a certain Rosa Parks, who on the 1st December 1955 decided that she was not going to go to the back of the bus. And one of the, it was a strategic move, it was planned, it had been a failed one before then. But again, that gave inspiration. That's when, I was very fortunate to grow up, and these people that were leaders then became my mentors and nurtured me in their learning. And Paul specifically talked about the inspiration that they got from the US. And again, it's something that I would follow in my career as well. That boycott, it lasted longer. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted much longer than the one in Bristol. Bristol was over in 4 months. This one's 13 months, sorry. Lots of intimidation. In December of '56, the following year, people had to walk a lot further as well. But what they did, and that gave inspiration to the people of Bristol. And the people of Bristol, again, this story is quite literally a story of unity and coming together, as you can see from people protesting. It goes down to the students that were there, who did the right thing, who also joined part of that. The community were a strong part of that as well. Those were the pictures that were taken, and specifically taken action, direct action, and marching down those that know Bristol well, down Park Street and beyond, and kept keeping this going to get that international acclaim, to force them to change their opinion. So bringing the story back around together. 28th of August 1963 is when the bus boycott officially was ended, when Bristol Omnibus decided to end the bus boycott. It was the same day as the Dr. King speech of "I Have a Dream," famously. Couldn't get a better synergy in Washington, D.C. And there's Paul there arguing as well. And so the bus strike was over from that. And I'm going to show you a film that will go to the end. That explains the whole Bristol bus boycott. And importantly, this is my next phase, what happens next?
I'm Gamba Cole, best known for playing Ben in TV series The Outlaws.
What type of match?
The bad boy.
It's set and filmed here in Bristol, where I was born, and when my granddad Dacre came to live from Jamaica in 1960.
Auntie?
My auntie Amira knows all the family history.
What was it like for him when he got to Bristol?
It's hard to find somewhere to live. It was hard to find work. You know, the thing with the sign, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, that's real. And when he did find work, he found it in Avonmouth, which was roughly a 6-mile walk from where he lived. And sometimes he'd be at the bus stop and the bus wouldn't stop for him, so he would walk there and walk back.
Wow.
He'd come into an hostile environment, Jamaica being a Commonwealth country and England being the mother home. That was what they were taught in Jamaica. Once he got here, he realised that was a different thing.
It's tough to hear how hard life was for my granddad back in the 60s. And it's not the only bit of history I was unaware of.
Even though I've got a strong connection to the city, I didn't know that 60 years ago, a protest took place which contributed to advancing the rights of black people.
It's known as the Bristol Bus Boycott. In April 1963, a West Indian community group led by youth worker Paul Stevenson looked to test the Bristol Omnibus Company's policy of refusing to employ black and Asian drivers and conductors.
Hello, Mr. Bailey.
Guy Bailey was 16 years old when he was sent in for a job interview.
So when you got to the bus company, what happened?
As I entered the reception, there was this young lady, so I said, I've got an interview. And she said to the manager, your appointment for 2 o'clock is here, but he's black. That the manager told her to tell me that you don't employ blacks.
So you heard them say that?
Yeah, they made it absolutely clear they don't employ blacks.
Wow. So wasn't it illegal to discriminate based on somebody's race?
There was no law said it was illegal.
How did it make you feel?
Sick to the curve of my heart.
In response, a complete boycott of the company's buses was organized.
Most of the black community did get together and decided not to take the bus.
Despite the pressure put upon the bus company, they continued to defend their policy.
Whilst we can obtain white labour in this city, we intend to go on engaging white labour rather than coloured labour.
There were marches, there were protests. The University of Bristol Student Union gave lots of support to the people that was marching through Bristol.
The boycott lasted 4 months and its impact was far-reaching. Roger Griffith is a lecturer and social activist.
On the 28th of August 1963, an announcement was made to say that the colour bar had ended and the campaign had been successful. And that was unique because on that day was I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C. from Dr. King. It was a matter of weeks before black and Asian people were allowed to not only apply but be accepted.
And it wasn't just the bus company's policies. The boycott helped drive fundamental changes nationally.
The success of 1963 led to the Racial Relations Act, and this made it unlawful to discriminate on the basis of colour. It's a plank of the UK Equalities Act. So for the disabled, for women, for around gender rights, the right to marry, all of that comes out of the process that we're here in this city. And that, more than anything, is the thing that we should have pride in today.
Learning more about the boycott has made me appreciate what my granddad's generation went through to improve their lives and create a better future for us. And the more people who know about it, the better.
Thanks to one show who heard about our work and not only came to Bristol but championed it and showed it on their one show. So they made that film, and Gamba Cole, as I say, appears in Outlaws. So that, along with my overview and introduction, really tells the story of the Bristol impact, Bristol Bus Boycott. And I want to now go to what its legacy that it leaves, both the personal one and the not national but international one as well, and why this story really should be sung from every rooftop. So you've already seen for yourselves the people who were involved in there. I've recounted that they came from internationally, that they were, and you know, the things that we should celebrate. And you know, ordinary working class people were involved, academics were involved, students were involved as well. But it's what happens next that is really important. It's what happens next that is really takes it on to the level where I feel this story should be sung from every rooftop. Madge Dresser, former mentor of mine, inspirational, there, wrote about it. And the title, again, with black and white on the buses, and given inspiration then to our generation. There's Tony Benn there as well. But the Race Relations Act was the first act. He was as good as his word. Went into the Labour government, was in opposition then. He became a cabinet member in Harold Wilson's government, and they passed that legislation in 1965. Remember I said, keep an eye on what's happening in the US. Round about the same time, you've got the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that went through, and this is what was influencing them. And then the 65 Voters' Rights Act of 1965, influenced by events in Selma that Dr. King was a part of, alongside others. And I'll be screening that film at the American Museum and Gardens, and open to see a few of you there. So this is where the two things dovetail. But it doesn't just stop there. This isn't just as an activist and social justice champion. It isn't just around just looking after our own. It's what happens next, not only through jobs in terms of Ragbir Singh and Norman Samuels, whose son then went on to represent Britain in the Olympics, more of which later. Again, this legacy, this as well. But this is the true dividend that it brings. This is the thing that brings us together, and the crux and the legacy that we leave. We're here with race and ethnicity, so we've discussed that. But if you're disabled, as I mentioned in the film, your religion is protected. Our respects to those who've been murdered in the past week because of their religion of Jewish faith, whatever, bringing that, because they're enshrined in law that their rights are protected, all of their rights of those that are faith. If you're of your age, so you can't say, well, you're too old for a job, or you're too young for a job. All of this comes out of the work of the Race Relations Act. As well, these laws were then introduced. Your sexual orientation is protected. Your gender is protected. Your gender reassignment is protected. Pregnancy and maternity. And Gamba's granddad, Dave, talked about Avonmouth. Well, I worked in those factories in Avonmouth. We'll come to my story shortly. I'm a London boy, but brought up in Lawrence Weston. If you're going all the way down to Cornwall and Devon, you'll see the factories there. They used to look slightly different than what they did now, as we'll go to. But I can remember working on the factory floor, women going in, and piecemeal work, women going in and saying to the boss that they're pregnant and coming out with their P45 or their cards. I lived through those times. Those aren't Victorian times. There's a few women in there who remember those times. That was that law. Then you could discriminate quite easily. That is now gone through the Equalities Act. You cannot do that. The right to marry whoever you like through marriage and civil partnership, a relatively new law in terms of the right to marry. But again, they found strength in the work that was done, both as activists and through legal challenges that came through. Just to make the case for it, some very basic social principles to eliminate discrimination, harassment and victimization, advance equality of opportunity, and foster good relations between people in protected groups. Let me just be clear about what this means. There's not any indoctrination or any other words that other people will use. This is why I'm so passionate about what we're seeing and about that work. And it's a business case that goes towards that. It's a better outcomes for organisations. It's integral and critical to all work practices. It champions best practice. It's good for business. Can't just have one set of people. You might want to reach out to younger people. You might, if you've got a disabled group as well, they can look at different things, neurodiversity as well, and just how things are there. It's better when we've got these different things that come about, different groups of people coming together as we are again today, and it's the law. As well, but fundamentally underpinning this, some basic social principles, good for everyone, families, friends, and the wider community, which we're all part of as well. And again, just knock down a few things around, what it is and the, so-called wokeism as well. Well, what we're doing when we talk about equity, we're just talking about taking people from where they are to where they need to be. I wouldn't just, take off Ian's glasses and say no one in this room can have glasses. We all got to have glasses, or we can. Or I'm a bit hard of hearing, some of us who need hearing aids. Well, no, those that want them, those that need contact lenses can use them. It's very basic things like that. That's what equity is. Those that need help can get help. Those that don't can support the others. It's that simple. This isn't stuff that's going to introduction of people. We've got to go move away from those. And don't forget, as we've seen in this last few weeks, what the impact come. I do some work for SARI at present. We've seen a rise in the increase of racial harassment, of attacks as well, and these are the things that it can and does lead to. SARI has support against racist incidents based in Bristol as well. That's the case for equalities and what it's enshrined in, and the groups that it protects are called protected characteristics. I want to talk about the legacy in Bristol and beyond as my next part. So I've talked about the role of the women. I've looked them, but still they've made strong imprints into the fabric of Bristol and wider. Barbara Detrin, Joyce Wyndham Morris, who I mentioned. Carmen Beckford was the first equalities officer for the City Council in 1968. Joyce Stevenson was one of the first nurses at Glenside then. Now it's the campus of UWE Bristol as well, and Princess Campbell as well. Those of a certain vintage generation will remember the Bamboo Club, the bringing together of people. Bob Marley had one of his early gigs there, for instance, based in St. Paul's. People come from miles to come and dance and be together, dressing up in their finest of things that they came together on as well. That's the Bamboo Club. Carnival brings millions into the city in finances. That's what I said about it's good for business. There's a big, strong business case behind that. As well as bringing the sense of unity of people together as well through music and culture and food and just enjoyment. Bristol West Indies Cricket Club, we were very sad that we buried David Sid Lawrence this year. One of our favoured sons out of Gloucester came to he was part of the Rose Green Club in Bristol as well, and many others. Guy is a famous cricketer from that. And he helped set up United Housing Association, a housing association for elders as well. He took his piece of work that he learned at the former Polytechnic now, which is now part of UWE Bristol, and made a business out of that. That is now a multi-million-pound business. United Churches Community Association was United Housing Association. People getting their homes, social housing. Again, it's at the fundamental fabric of putting communities together, I would argue. Unfortunately, we don't all bleed the same. We're not all the same. There are, we have people who have sickle cell within our community as well, and it debilitates those of Black and Asian heritage. They set up those themselves. None of this stuff is in place. Didn't need the internet. They set it all up themselves. They met in places like this, and they got together. As well. The Mill Youth Club, Guy was a worker there, many others as well. So these are the things that, when we look at what's happening today, and just in terms of social fabric, these communities, they came and they put these things there. And this is just one community. And I know that they exist within Asian communities and other communities as well. And importantly, the story now flips over in terms of SEED, the Centre for Economic Employment and Development, and that's what I got into. So I was a positive action trainee. I had a very bad time at school. Did terribly at school. left school without any qualifications. I'm a social and cultural historian. I hated history when I was at school. Part of it was finding my identity, finding stories like this that gave me hope as well. And from that, I'm going to read to you. This is called My Identity Boomerang. Both my parents are from Guyana, formerly British Guiana. Geographically in South America, but politically and culturally, it is very much part of the Caribbean. You see, the question of identity and home is complicated. I call it my identity boomerang. I cast it out toward the Americas, watching it arch and soar across to Africa, and it skims back across the Atlantic Ocean, landing into my hands as I stand in my hometown of Bristol's historical harbourside. Here, I discovered fortunes amassed from stolen and trafficked enslaved lives I never knew but felt connection to. Buildings, streets, squares, monuments and pubs were home to abolitionists. The cobbled streets that housed Bristol Old Vic Theatre were built with these tainted origins. It was here I saw my first play and would later work with them in partnership with the Bristol Post newspaper, hosting city conversations on race. Despite efforts to obscure its past, as Madge Dresser wrote, history cannot be removed, hidden, or buried. It simply surrounds us. Though anger at injustice of history flared, it did not ease my pain. Only study and research would be a salve. And so I took a fresh look at my parents' journey and rediscovered the Windrush generation to rebuild Britain post-World War II. They arrived as citizens with rights that had been denied to some for decades later. I was the first of my family to be born in what they called the motherland. Far from hating my city and country, I became fascinated by its complexities, nuances, and perspectives. I sought balance without diluting my beliefs or values. I discovered the 1963 bus boycott and met Paul Stevenson and its Caribbean leaders, Barbara Dettering, Roy Hackett, and Lee Goodridge, who I've mentioned. These civil rights campaigners taught me that social activism was a duty. They had served Britain and Bristol well, and passed on the torch of community service to my generation. I went back to night school as an adult to get the qualifications I failed to achieve as a boy. I studied at a range of community learning venues to help me realize my potential and harness the offers of support. My grandfather spent his final years in Manhattan with my Uncle Sam, who now lives in Berlin. On my grandfather's only trip to Bristol in 1985, we visited the grave of the enslaved Scipio Africanus in Hembury, in North Bristol. My son had been born weeks earlier, and I imagined his ancestral spirit flowing to a future generation. My sister, a Rastafarian, moved to Africa, and she informed me of African empires, kings and queens, which I later heard in reggae lyrics and bass lines. In line with her wishes, she is buried in Ghana, and post-COVID, I hope to connect her roots with my roots, my future odysseys and chronicles. These are my homes and spiritual identities from my birth to present day. I'm North London, I'm Guyanese, I'm Tottenham, Lawrence Western, Bristolian, English, European, West Indian and Caribbean, African, of the African diaspora, British. All complicated and complex, entwined and immersed identities that I've grown to love. Trying to discard any one of them would be like attempting to function without an organ. Sure, it's possible. I won't bring out my best self. I'm no longer subjugated by the empire or burdened by my past. Instead, I've reclaimed it, reinventing new opportunities for myself and future generations. My identity boomerang is forged in fire, an ally of my spiritual past and invigorating present, shaped by allies and alliances. It's carried me across generations of trauma, from the Middle Passage to sugar plantations, from cold British streets to places where I've seen wealth that's far from common, divested in developed lands. And every day it guides me upon new adventures, giving me fresh fortitude, understanding, creating new allies, and building new friends. Thank you. So that was, I find it easier to express myself through words in terms of just telling my history, and it's taken me from those my humble beginnings. That's the my factories I talked about. That's my school. As I said, it was hard, and we were cannon fodder basically. I mean, that was that 99% white area that I grew up in as well. So I'm fully aware of some of the emotive stuff that occurred through there and fighting skinheads through that. But I fought them alongside my white allies. They were my friends who would, before you got to the R and the N word, there would be a fist in their face, and those fists were white. That came from my friends. That was the brotherhood that we had. And that was, I was lucky enough to celebrate Malcolm X's birthday in Harlem in New York, the centennial of his 100th years. Again, these inspirations. So all of these that happen in all of us. You all have these stories. You all have these complex identities. You know one thing as well. And it's for you, if you haven't already, to not only explore, but embrace all of them. As well. That it can be, like I say, that didn't even get out of my own family. As I said, my sister, my late sister, sadly has passed away and is in Africa. But that's why we're not from Africa directly, indirectly from ancestry from the transatlantic slave trade, but that's where she wanted to be, and that's fine. We can have these different ideas and complexes, and just understand that we're just different in different ways. Remember that equity. The Windrush legacy. I'll move to as well. I've talked about the legacy on a personal basis. I've talked about the Equalities Act and the legal case. I've touched a little bit on the business case. But, from Oscar-winning Steve McQueen, oops, what happened there, sorry. Benjamin Zephaniah, and his poetry, people like Mallory Blackman as well, mayors that we've provided. Culture and music, so much that has been given from that ship that came out in terms of sound systems. I'll touch upon that. Sport, there's these three gentlemen here were known as the 3 Degrees. They were the first black players that came through in about 1978. And it was, we had Clyde Best, Eddie Coker, but we don't have too many black footballers. And now it's just something that we don't even bat an eyelid about. And our politicians as well, as Lorraine, and there's Linford in 84 with a British flag. And that was controversial at the time for different reasons. As well. So it's that contribution, again, reinserting myself back in, that's given me inspiration. That's what, my future project is as well. And as Paul mentioned, there's things that I've, gone on to do and work with. And again, it's, reflecting and really thinking about today and the calls for an agreement, and they're not denying that there's not a case to be made, but there's also a case to be made for as well, and I'm here to give it and prosecute it as well in our medical services, our transport services as well, and catering, and still that strong British sense from these that Rugby World Cup, and I'm in a rugby city from Bath. His father was a part of the Windrush generation. Lewis Hamilton with his father then, and Jessica Ennis as well, world champions from that. We want to turn this away and not have any of that. Yes, again, let's have the conversation, but let's not have the hate that goes with it. Let's have an understanding that what happens, like my parents working hard, and then produce people like these as well. And that goes to the personal inspiration that it's given me in my work, and why these things are too entwined as well. Very fortunate enough, moving left to right, to reward Guy Bailey as the last of the leaders to receive an honorary document. He's a doctorate. He's still alive now, and I gave was my proudest moments to give his valedictory speech for his work. We took our elders. That's Westminster behind that. We've got a bus working with Curiosity Unlimited and a certain Jules Davis, who's taken this work forward. And we managed to take a group of elders and young people forward and up to Westminster. And we also got a bus competition as well to decorate a bus. And that bus is still, even though it's supposed to be only a year, it's still doing the rounds around Bristol. Told you to keep an eye on the link through the US, and that's now my research area. And I was very fortunate enough to meet, that's Dr. King's son, Martin Luther King III, and Jules, I know, is planning to bring Dr. King's son to Bristol. But that was an honour to touch history and all the work that's done in that narrative. So this is why this is, becomes personal to me as well. And then part of my team and telling their stories and narratives and working there. And my future project, which is Firstborn Second. That's as part of the children of the Windrush era as well. And so, again, I'll be talking more about the contribution that's been given. So I'm going to give my second reading here. This is called Firstborn Second, an ode to Black British triumphs and legacy. From the Caribbean, our parents, our people came by land, plane and sea to start new families and build a legacy. The Windrush generation arrived as firstborn equals in their motherland, but were treated as second-class citizens. Of that, they were soon to understand. There were no streets waved with gold or tea with the queen to guard against the cold. So these pioneers and our Commonwealth cousins made us their little nuggets of gold. We were the firstborn children of immigrants in Britain after Hitler's extermination code, the second generation, or firstborn second, for this my loving ode. We joined a rich lineage with hue and heritage from the African diaspora, of those who were also born inside the borders of the white cliffs of Dover. The pioneers resolved to great partnerships, shebeens and civic associations, joining together in smoky music-filled front rooms with memories from their nations. Living in two worlds, one black, one white, we wanted a new and brighter tomorrow. And we found joy, we found pain, and sadly, some sorrow. Inside our homes, there were flags, reminders and photos of family in sunny places. But on the streets, adventure lurked, laced with danger for youths with black faces. In our ancestral blood, resistance and resilience ebb and flow like the Atlantic Ocean. When we read Dr. Paul Gilroy's history books, it's an indisputable notion. We clashed with our parents, an educational system that didn't understand us, before encountering racist police and politicians in this Babylon, poisoned with sus. Ain't no black in the Union Jack, the Skinnings taunted, would go back home, scrawled on walls. Uprisings and protests erupted, with thousands answering the rallying calls. From the New Cross fire to Stephen Lawrence's murder, there was no place for cover. For black lives then did not matter as much as our friends, colleagues, and lovers. Some left to return to their spiritual souls, to the motherland where they freely roamed. For the rest of us, trapped in a loveless marriage, we struggled to call Britain home. With children of our own arriving, we fought to invent our own new aura, adopted Marcus Garvey's philosophies, helped us progress a new black diaspora. Picking up the baton from those before us, some embarked on cultural revolutions. Forged in fire, we sidestepped the shackles and built sound systems. Lovers rock, two-tone, jungle, trip-hop, drum and bass, garage and grime. Just a taste of new musical flavors we innovated, producing new rhymes. Every summer, streets come alive with Caribbean traditions and carnival beats, with fashions, hairstyles, and dialects from Asian Africa as they dance in the heat. Our Caribbean food is a culinary delight. Chef Pasadocci on the left-hand side. While entertainers like Selene and the Real McCoy meant we no longer had to hide. Filmmakers and artists such as Benjamin Zephaniah remind us of what we've forgotten, whilst writers like Andrea Levy tell us stories of how Black British life has blossomed. Athletes from north, south, east and west wear the shirt and skin colours with pride. from Olympic and world sport and glory, lifting the nation's spirits. Boy, what a ride! Westminster politicians of different political stripes represent us despite their image, whilst carers and community workers embody the African proverb, it takes a village. From 1948 to today, we have saved lives in our great NHS with skill and loving, while makers, engineers and transport teams ensure we keep on moving. So let us rejoice in how we've changed the face of Britain. Yes, that means you too. I know it's darker, that I can't deny, but look at all the wonderful things we've given you. Firstborn second, your recollections may fade and dreams perhaps disappeared, but no one will ever forget our triumphs, our legacy, or that we're here. Thank you. So that's the kick-off my Firstborn second project, Stories of the Windrush Generation. Touch upon a little bit of that shortly. The inspiration in Bath, I mean, after I left Ajima Radio, I was there as chair of Ajima Radio, a community a radio station there, and I wanted to do different. And I had some links. I've spoken at with Bath Families Education Support Group many years ago. Rob Mitchell, who's done several films on there. Bristol Boycott and Beyond is always done work there, and we've always had that exchange back and forth to give them support. And I suppose in our wider sense, looking back into the history of Paul Stevenson, we've always given that support because we are a city of activists, artists, and academics in terms of what we can give, and that from the protests or the riots and rebellions of the 1980 in St. Paul's. We've always had that, but I've been delighted in terms of the work. I mentioned American Music and Gardens there. Was talking earlier with Paul, and contributed to stuff at the University of Bristol, Breaking Dead Silence as well, working with Film Bath. Been on the board there I'm stepping down this year, but I've had 4 years and bringing more diversity in there. And Blaze, which is an imprint from Bath Spa University as well, and Bambo Soronke has done brilliant work through Paper Nations as well. And the two Kates from Curious Minds, that's Ellen E. Jones, does a podcast with Mark Commodore and the launch of her book as well. So not just sticking to Bristol, helping the institutions here in those messages, and it's been a surprise to me because I didn't know what the reception would be like. Obviously, I've come to Boston several times, and from it's just all Jane Austen, but it isn't, Roger. That's what I thought. I have to say, and we have to say we all got our little prejudices. That's what I was thinking. I haven't. I've had the doors, wide, including here, widely thrown up, and I'm just. There's just a few of the organisations belonging as well, the belonging network. As part of that. So some fantastic organisations to engage with here. I've worked with both in partnership and also supporting the existing organisations here. Again, that legacy, what I mentioned in my reading around passing the baton and that civic engagement as well. So, going to our this is literally just the ink still wet off this. Just received this on over the weekend. So this is the project that I'll be very fortunate to get Arts Council funding, and along with 8 other partners, I'll be running a series of projects, workshops. I've got a film season as well as part of that, exhibition, filmed interviews, podcasts. And really just talking about the contribution of migrant life to Britain and that culture. I've already have done that. So I'm coming to the close. I've got a poem to close with on the Windrush generation. So what we covered was the case for equality, diversity, equity and inclusion, the legacy in Bristol and Britain and Bath too, as well, and the personal inspiration, as you've seen. I've been a great pains to state of what it's given me personally. I wouldn't be there here before you. Went through some very dark times during those 80s, unemployed for a long time, working in those buildings, unskilled before I went back to found in that. And that's why there's a case again for this to be in the curriculums as well. It was missing. I didn't know anything into my 20s about the Bristol Bus Boycott. So I understand if I'm still coming across people all the time who haven't heard of the Bristol Boycott. That's why there's a great case for this to be in the curriculum. It's not just a one-track story about what black people did. We had support, we had allies, we had friends, we had campaigners all across the world who came together to fight injustice. And obviously we've covered the story of the 1963 Bristol Bus Boycott. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Roger. That was great. You certainly covered a lot of ground there. If you have a question, could you wait for the microphone to come to you so that people at home can hear you? And I should have said earlier, if you're at home and you have a question, would you put it in the chat room at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll read it out in the room. So does anyone have any questions? Well, I'll start with a question, actually, Roger. Just going back to the bus boycott, it's normal, you know, the big inconvenience if you're a bus passenger is when the staff go on strike. It's unusual for passengers to go on strike. There must have been mixed feelings amongst the population as a whole. So how widespread was it? Was there still people catching the buses? And obviously there's opposition to it. I mean, how did that work out? And what brought it to the end? How did it finish with the agreement of the Bristol Omnibus Company to actually change their policy?
Well, it was 4 months, roughly around roughly around the 28th of April, varies difference, but we'll just say April 1963 until August, 28th of August 1963. And as in all campaigns, there was pressure put on. People didn't really join first of all, but it gained momentum. People were, concerned, and they just didn't want their city tainted with that. So more and more people joined, speaking to the campaigners through then. And again, it's highlighted in Madge Dress's excellent book, and again, another person who's been a great ally to me. She's a lecturer at UE. It gained the momentum that it required. It was also almost shamed them into submission. And again, this was protectionism by the union, who have subsequently apologised. They were within the city council. It wasn't the city council leaders; it was a union protection. So it's not, even though their rights are all for one for all, it wasn't quite like that. And it's even funny enough. Then Bill Morris, who's another Windrush generation a senior, and somebody again who went on to work for TWE. But as we all we can all change and do the right thing.
Question here.
It sort of follows from that. I can't imagine that the discrimination that led to the boycott in Bristol was unique to Bristol in 1963. So why do you think it all kicked off in Bristol rather than Birmingham or London?
That's a great question. I've wondered that myself, to be honest. And it's very funny you've picked out those two places. So let's start with London. London had riots that occurred in Notting Hill, 1958. Someone was murdered. Kelsey Cochrane was murdered then. You had Teddy Boys back then. My era was skinheads. It was Teddy Boys then, roaming the streets looking for people to beat up. My partner's here tonight. She would, we'd have been attacked as, interracial partnerships were things that were attacked then, not only in Notting Hill, but Nottingham as well, St Anne's specifically. Let's go back, to Battle of Cable Street, Oswald Mosley's black shirts. That's where the Birmingham thing comes. That's where he comes out of, and a place called Smethwick, also in the period a bit later in 1965, Britain's most racist election, which is why I was over in Harlem. Not only have I an admirer of Malcolm X's life and work, not all of his early policies for sure, but he came to Britain, came to Birmingham in Smethwick in February the 12th to visit, because there was people saying, if you want an N-word neighbour, vote Labour back then. You had Dudley riots that were happening in around Birmingham. So you had a real, and then that feeds into Oswald Mosley's black shirts again in there. So and there were other incidences of colour bars there. I'd have to say it takes extraordinary people, like I just touched upon Dr. King's early rise into that, because he was a reluctant hero. He was, was a reverend. He was not wanting to. The moment called him, he was selected by that. I would say the same for Paul Stevenson as well, our own activist who really carries the Bristol Bus Boycott forward, who galvanised the local community. And that's tough. Bristol's a tough community. Even then, he was born in the UK. He wasn't from the Caribbean, from African origin. So he was out of London. Very posh accent as well. And it was also so really fit. So he had a lot of different forces that he had to pull together on. So I would argue, I can't prove this, I want that, but I would argue it takes an extraordinary person to galvanise the man that met the moment then. And galvanise other leaders that I've showed today, and to organise, again, use that strategy, meeting in rooms and organise, knew how to get international support, knew how to tell a narrative and story, and also reach across the aisle to our white allies as well. So that is what I would put back in response to your question.
Hi, Lisa Brett.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I was recently listening to a diversity campaigner who was campaigning that when we focus on diversity, we're focusing on differences within communities. We're putting the focuses on what makes people different, and it's time to shift that debate now to similarities and what unites us and our commonalities, to move away from focusing on diversity and differences to focusing on what we our commonalities and what we have in common. I'd like to know what you think about that.
I think it's variations, two-part answer. Variations on the theme. So just in terms of similarities, yes word, yeah, use similarities, yeah, you said. Commonalities, yeah. So what's our commonalities? So yeah, okay. So I think that's a variation on our theme. The second part, I would say, if you don't understand what my needs are, and that's why I mentioned about being disabled, and as I'm getting, I just touched 60 this year. So if you don't understand what my needs are, how are you going to meet my needs? If we just shove down whether I need I've got bad knees, religious and cultural expression from, what women need, what your age groups in terms of that. I've missed out Fairford House, by the way, as part of that. How are you going to fully understand. You'll understand, but how are you going to fully understand how are you going to meet person's needs? I only want to know so I can and help and how. And, you know, I mentioned that with the, you know, Ian, same with you. If I don't know that you want, you know, if you're in teaching, for instance, you might want larger text, or you know, or the ramp, or what are you? I'm only going to do that by finding out what they are, by having a conversation, and that's what the you know. So fine, I can lose the diversity, but I can't lose the equity. Equity is where it finds out what your needs are, so I can help, and I can give you the resources that's needed. I can apply for them, and wherever, again, as a teacher, I can say, well, I come forward, or you know, whether it's lighting. What are your needs that you require? Just so, and all we're doing is leveling the playing field. No one's getting anything extra from that. So that's why I mentioned very crudely around glasses and hearing aid. But that's the, you know, I want to get this direct. So in part one, I think, yes, to me that's variations on a theme. Part two, I need to understand what your needs are in terms of equity, so I can deliver what you can, so you can be the best that you can be.
Hi there. Thank you very much. That's really, really brilliant presentation. I was just thinking, after the what we saw with the toppling of the Colston statue in Bristol, I'm interested to know where you think the public authorities, the council, government, universities, and wider institutions who have these sort of awful relics of sort of slavery in public society, where they should draw the line between taking something like that down, or enabling something like that to be taken down, and maybe focusing more on kind of like public awareness and actually not taking kind of like active measures to remove a painting or taking a step. Where do you think there is a sensible place to draw a line, and what kind of processes do you think should be gone through in order to establish whether something like that should be taken down or have its name changed, etc.?
Can you just let me just summarize the question. First of all, I've got an immediate response. So where should a line be drawn regards monuments, paintings removed that cause offence for slavery, or do?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it.
Okay.
I mean, presumably, you know, if you were to investigate the actions of somebody who might have had a role in the slave trade, for example, their role might have been much more closely involved with the slave trade, or it might have been removed by a number of certain degrees.
Sure.
I don't know. There's all sorts of potential hypothetical examples of like how, I guess, involvement could have taken place. I'm kind of interested to know where you think a sensible place for an organisation to say, right, this clearly meets like a benchmark whereby this person, Edward Colston or whoever it might be, should have their statue removed, or actually we can focus more on like public awareness about this person's third degree involvement in slavery, etc. And what kind of process do you think should be gone through in order to kind of establish the process, and what should happen to these sorts of relics? Okay,
the line is drawn for me on a case-by-case basis. I don't believe that anybody there shouldn't be any blanket policy to say they all got to come down, they all case-by-case basis. Simple as that one for me in terms of where the line is drawn. And then the process, which is the part two of your question, the process should be consultation with community, consultation with people who work institution, seeing what the dissent is there. The process in Bristol, specifically, part three, to answer your question, which touches upon, you've mentioned the Colston. Well, there was a process in the. Madge Dresser was I've referenced several times. We couldn't even in Bristol before it came down, and it was to me of someone with African origin. And blood running through my veins. I found it offensive that we had it there, but having a process to find out how we can get it, we couldn't agree on the word "the" to try and contextualize it. So there was so much opposition towards that. Again, in terms of moving things forward, and you know, the statue has come down, but then there was a process of Bristol, do you want this to come back up? 3-1 they voted against. You can still see it's in the museum where it belongs. In this case, certainly. Someone like Jivy Samuel, for instance, we don't want to see that anywhere. You know, when people say it's history and you know that you're damaging, there are some parts that we can't. Because still, the compromise on Colston specifically is it's in the museum, and you can still view that an empty plinth. For all the others, hundreds of them, case by case basis, I think is the best way forward.
Question over here.
Thank you, Roger. Can I make an observation and ask for your comment on it?
Of course.
In 1963, I was living in South Wales, and I knew of the Bristol Bus Boycott from snippets on the news and in newspapers. Now, I'd been brought up with a view of history which was very much the great man view of history, sorting things out for the lesser people like you and me. And the thing that struck me about the Bristol Bus Boycott, I was 15 years old at the time. The thing that struck me about it was that this was people taking something for themselves rather than waiting to be granted it. And that struck me as novel. Now, subsequently, I found that a lot more of that had happened than we were told in history. And I began to read C.L.R. James, who was strong on that theme. Was I right to spot that?
Spot what?
To spot that it was people taking it for themselves,
oh, 100%.
rather than it being granted to them top down.
I don't even know if it was any. Rather than I just referenced Dr. Paul Stevenson and his work. It was grassroots activism that was at the heart of that. You've seen the students, you've seen the people of Bristol who were part of that narrative. And I mean, I'm glad you found out in 1963 that was the case. So I'm very, pleased that you. I mean, I can say into my 20s, totally absent from my school curriculum. That happened in Bristol. You've seen in the video, which is why I love playing it. Not again removing myself from it. We've got somebody 30 years younger than me who had no idea. And his auntie is an activist. She's a counsellor. Again, I saw her today at Malcolm X Centre. I had no idea about this story. People are still not knowing that. And it's again, to me, it's an uncontroversial story. Can I throw something back to you, sir? What's your name? David. 1963 is for people in South Wales, a momentous time. Do you know what your people did in 1963? To help race relations in the world? Is it? Paul Robeson? No.
Paul Robeson film set in South Wales.
That's but there was so in the newspapers in South Wales, it was reported from an atrocity. So I've been very saying around I have a dream speech. Well, 6 weeks after I have a dream, you had an explosion. You had 4 little girls murdered in cold blood with dynamite blown up in a church in Birmingham, Alabama, 16th Street Baptist Church specifically. that happened. 6 weeks after I Have a Dream, because everybody thinks, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, and then it was Kumbaya, happy ever after. No, the story continues. You know, up until Martin Luther's assassination in 1968. But specifically, 6 weeks after the I Have a Dream speech, actually it was a few weeks later, 4 little girls were murdered, blown to smithereens by a bomb by the Ku Klux Klan in that church. The people of Wales, in South Wales, were so moved by this story, a story that was put in, you know, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. I visited it several times when Stacey have gone. They clubbed together. They put money together. Thank you, sir, David. They made what's known as the Welsh window. They had a Black Jesus commissioned. Imagine that. Black Jesus commissioned. They put their hard-earned money together, and they sent this to the people of Birmingham, Alabama. And that church is, that window is still revered. You know, on another day, I'd have the presentation. I certainly can send that as a Black Jesus. It's called the Welsh window, and revered there. So good things can happen, sir. And thank you to your country people for you know, supporting that and beyond. Next question, please. Yeah. Online, don't forget. Any questions?
Yesterday, I visited Fairfield House, which was the home of Haile Selassie,
yes,
who was a charismatic figure, very well known, black guy, loved the people of Bath, and donated Fairfield House to the city for his warm welcome. Anyone who's interested, do go and visit, and they have lots of events there. Very worthwhile supporting, does lots of good community work. And Haile Selassie left the property for the benefit of older people, and it's still used for it. However, our guide on the way talked about Jane Austen. Everybody wants to come to visit Bath to see Jane Austen, and you mentioned her. And he was making the point, there are many people who come to Bath to visit the home of Haile Selassie, particularly people who are interested or perhaps support the Rastafarian faith. And I just wondered what you felt about that. Will it become the new Jane Austen?
I don't think Haile Selassie has the same coverage as Jane Austen, and I don't want to knock Jane Austen and any other writer. As well, but and again, whilst I'm here in terms of writing, paying my respects to another great writer, Gilly Cooper, who died today as well. But no, I don't. I think it's more about how we preserve that legacy, and I'm fully aware at Fairfield House and the wonderful work that they do, and also I'm actually speaking there on the 20th of October. I just arranged that today. And I think it's the cultural imprint so the Rastafarian movement, which again, Haile Selassie is the leader and the emperor from Ethiopia. There's a whole story within that. It's in the film Marley as well. But that's a whole movement of people, and then they're trying to build up for a more cultural centre. One of your famous sons, Sean Sobers, who works at you, is central to that work. Again, another great mentor and inspiration for me personally. Another person who's put me here in front of you today. So I think it's doing what you've done and supporting that with money and support. I know they're reaching out to Emblaze and Bath Spa and the institutions to get their arms around this institution. And that's two-way, and it has to be how they want it, but what can be done to help this institution? How can, because I don't think they want the certain publicity, but as you said, they're working with the Caribbean elders. They've got a home there, they've got Windrush Legacy front room as well, and they've got great plans for what they want to do going forward. And I 100% endorse what the work they're doing going forward.
I think, as you say, there's much more to Jane Austen much more to Bath than Jane Austen. Got one more question.
First, a kind of comment I watched the Emmett Till film last night, and it would seem to me that the Bristol boycott is a perfect topic for a good film, and maybe one has already been made, but certainly it's a topic for a very good film.
100%.
As you can tell from the accent, I'm from the United States. Can you just make some observations on all of the horrific actions that are happening in the United States against DEI?
I think my work and the way I've framed it speaks to that. I don't want to give those people too much oxygen, because they'll always, you know as well as I do, this is from Jim Crow laws that Dr. King fought against. They'll always find a way to legitimize it anyway. This is just the latest iteration. Racism is like a mutating virus, and it has ways of chasing. From enslavement to 3/5 human, to you can't use that founting, to systematic racism, to there are different ways it changes and mutates, and people will go in with their basest nature of prejudice to use that. So I think specifically, obviously, from the violence in cities like Chicago. What's more insidious, though, is the erosion of culture and the book banning, specifically. Those books were inspiration in my life and going to the library, and I don't get the cruelty and the inhumanity of it. That's what's new this time around, and that's what seems to be going back towards where hopefully some of you can make it for. A Selma, where I'll touch upon more of that then. I want to talk more about the inspiration of Dr. King than I do about the practice today. I will go into that at the other event. I'm happy to talk to you certainly afterwards.
Well, thank you. And I think if we broaden that question, then you're right in terms of needing to know about parts of our history, like the Bristol Bus Boycott, but on a broader basis, like it or not, Britain is influenced quite heavily by the US. It influences people here, as we're seeing. Do you think that the younger generation, maybe, well, I won't ask the question because I know the answer, but maybe the younger generation has sort of kind of taken things for granted and needs to be told about what happened in the past, and maybe to break the complacency, reminded about how things could be very different. They're not necessarily going to carry on as they are. So I
think there's some merit in that, but I think that goes to all of us.
You really brought that out in many ways with this example of the Bristol Bus Boycott. So perhaps I could thank you on behalf of
I've got one poem to read before I go.
One poem, okay, right.
Before I close, thank you for your questions and answers. Thanks online as well. So this, I'm going to send us out without looking to things transatlantic on this occasion from the bad side, but the inspiration that they have, and that's why I draw inspiration from Black America and my visits to places like New Orleans and Katrina, but also Birmingham and the Welsh window. But anyway, we're going to go back to the Windrush generation to close. And this is a poem called The Salute to the Windrush Generation. And what of the Windrush generation, I hear you ask? From their painful testimonies, we should all be aghast. Invited guests to these hostile lands by a young queen, without housing, good jobs, and banned from the pub. No wonder they invented shebeens. These torchbearers came to help rebuild a nation, arriving as they did from many ports, airports, and stations. Their dreams of streets paved with gold that once burned bright, now lie cracked like broken pavements in diminishing candlelight. Sadly, they suffered abuse. That didn't make their spirits dip. Instead, it strengthened their resolve and hardened their newly acquired, stiff British upper lip. The signs they face: no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. And in response, they partner together to make homes for us newborn sprogs. As rapper Drake says, they started at the bottom and rose to the top, an irresistible movement that can never be stopped. For where would these wonderful sceptred arms be without a helping brown or black hand? From the NHS to local businesses, how can anyone not understand? In music, food and culture, they led the race. And when the playing field was leveled, in sport, they excelled, setting a new pace. And even though I had learned much violence, I had inherited from my family and people resilience. For I had seen my parents strive for meager pay, also that we and future generations could have our say. Mind the closing doors, Father said on the underground, before passing away and fading into the background. Whilst my mother and others attended to patients on ward, for each and every one they cared for, their kindness was a reward. And so today, I ask you to stand or kneel to salute the Windrush generation, and to them, please accept this small thank you on behalf of a very grateful nation. My name is Roger Griffith.